today is going to be a very special episode. It's going to explain to you guys how he went from DoorDash driver to making over $1 million a year investing in real estate.
So about 4 years ago, I was studying computer science in college at Ohio State. Started looking up literally on Google what to do with 10, 20, 30K a year to try to grow it. Went into this office and there was like 20, 30 guys cold calling, banging the phones, making deals happen, and a bunch of them owned 5, 10, 20 plus homes before 30. I just began calling everybody that owned a duplex in Grandview Heights, Ohio. So I put $15,000 into a machine on the first day of the year. And at the end of the year, I turned it into 35 times 3 plus your money back. So that's 105,000.
Welcome back to another episode of the Real Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Furman.
I'm your other host, Anthony Slane.
And today is going to be a very special episode as we got my good friend here who's going to explain to you guys how he went from DoorDash driver to making over $1 million a year investing in real estate. So without further ado, welcome my good friend, Josh Janus.
Thanks for having me, Nick and Anthony.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, man.
Glad
This
you're
is great.
here.
Glad we caught up a little bit last night, man. Ran into each other at the Cavs game.
Totally.
Courtside Josh. Anyways, man, that was a good game. I think the Cavs are going to do it this year.
Yeah. Keep sticking to the momentum they got going.
Yeah, they were slipping a little bit, but I think they're back on track. It might be tough. I don't know if we can get through Boston finally, but be interesting to see.
That's the biggest test, right?
Yeah, no
Boston?
doubt. No doubt, man. So, anyways, yeah, Josh, super honored to have you on, man. This is great. When Anthony and I started this podcast, I was excited to have you on. Your story is incredible. How you started and everything. So, just bring the people a little bit closer to who Josh Janus is. Give us your backstory. Where'd you start? Tell us about your journey and how you got to where you are today.
For sure. So very quickly, I'm basically a full-time realtor, investor, and starting to be a developer as well. So I'm all in real estate. Now I'll go backwards and kind of explain how I got to this point.
Yeah.
So about 4 years ago, I was studying computer science in college at Ohio State. And I knew I was going to have a decent income, and I wanted to figure out what could I do with the money that I could save. Started looking up literally on Google what to do with, 10, 20, 30K a year to try to grow it. And
What did Google say?
Google was like real estate, stocks, crypto, and real estate seemed to make sense.
Just
and
invest it all in the Dogecoin, see what happens. Fuck it.
Yeah, just dump it all in and just watch it do whatever it does.
Yeah.
But I was attracted to the idea of house hacking, so buying a duplex, living in one unit, and renting it out. And I ended up, figuring out who could help me with this process. And I found a guy on Remington, found him on Bigger Pockets, who was a realtor in Columbus at the time. And I was like, hey, can you help me with this process? I got money saved. I got a decent credit score. Don't have a job yet, so I might need to figure that out. But went into this office and there was like 20, 30 guys cold calling, banging the phones, making deals happen. And a bunch of them owned 5, 10, 20 plus homes before 30. And I was looking at my income trajectory, what the job I was going to take. And I was like, how is this ever going to be possible?
And how long ago was this?
4 years ago.
This was 4 years ago.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, right on 4. So I was like, how can I get involved, right? And I just began calling everybody that owned a duplex in Grandview Heights, Ohio, which is where I was living, which is like a suburb in Columbus, and started to talk to all the owners and like, hey, how did you get to this? How did you buy this property? How did you scale? I see you own this other stuff. Met with a bunch of people that owned a lot of real estate or some real estate. Ended up being able to sell some of those homes because they were ready to move into a bigger asset or exit.
You're saying as an agent, you represented them to...
So in the beginning, I was kind of like a wholesaler. I was just like, hey, at some point, would you like to sell the home? Great. You want $400K for this duplex? I work with a realtor who has investors. Let's see if they have a buyer. And, put together some of those deals, made some marketing fees, began to understand like prices, areas, began to understand construction costs a little bit. And as I was saving money, I started to buy my own deals. So about 6 to 9 months in the process, I bought my first deal. It was a duplex in Cleveland, Ohio, on West 117th.
Was that West Boulevard?
Yep. Yeah.
And how did you buy it? Like, were you buying in cash? Did you do a DSCR product? How did you buy your first deal?
I bought it with hard money. So I had about $40K saved before I even got into real estate from previous business ventures. And I was making, 30 to 50K a month pretty quickly through cold calling, putting a lot of deals together. So I had income coming in, and I was like, all right, let's try to buy this house or renovate it and then rent it out. So I bought it for 80K with a hard money loan.
Mm-hmm.
They gave me the renovation costs, and I put down about 10%. So
What were the renovation
15K.
costs on that specific deal?
So the first contractor I got, obviously, usually your first time around is bad.
Yeah, of course.
So
That's
instead
what I
it
was going to ask you, was getting into it. Like, what was your experience like just jumping right into it, right? And going, hey, I know I want to buy this thing. I know I want to fix it up and rent it. The biggest next piece is who's going to fix it up.
Everyone's
right?
got a nightmare.
Yeah,
contractor
everyone's got a
story.
nightmare story. So I have a feeling one might be coming.
Oh, there's a lot. This is the first one. Yeah, this dude said it was gonna be like 30 to 35K, you know, LVP flooring, paint the walls, basic cabinets, nothing crazy. And I bought the property. He started to work on it. When you open up a box of LVP flooring, you're supposed to alternate the
Yep.
panels.
Yeah, of course.
So he didn't do that. That's just one example of 50 things he didn't do.
Which is why you got to show up with your, even if you have great relationships with your contractors, is like, it feels like overkill sometimes, but you have to fucking show up to these proper, like we said it the other days, even if you have a great GC, at the end of the day, you're the GC.
Yep.
Right. So you got to be showing up to these properties multiple times a week, or little shit like that's going to happen and it's going to add up.
Oh, yeah. And I learned he didn't even go in the attic. So in Cleveland, it's a lot of like first floor is a unit, second floor is a unit, and then third floor is maybe a finished unit.
With squatters.
With
You're in
squatters
Cleveland.
or jugs or whatever the heck else is up there.
Yeah.
And there was live electrical wires running on the wood framing, which is a big fire hazard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this place should have burnt down. Somehow it didn't. And, you know, the original 30 to 35K job turned into a 50K job done poorly. So after my first set of tenants moved out, I had to basically redo the whole house.
Oh.
So luckily I paid a good price for the building.
Yeah.
So I didn't really lose any money. I just didn't really make any money.
Do you still hold that property? Or did you
Oh,
sell
yeah.
it? Yeah, you still have that today?
I thought it went well at the time. So I
Yeah.
was like, let's try. No, I didn't. But I was like, let's just try to buy the whole street. So I called everybody that owned a duplex
Just
in West
cold call.
117th. Yeah, I called every single owner.
And where were you, how were you finding those addresses and phone numbers?
I was going on the auditor
Yeah.
and then taking the owner entity. If it's an LLC, I'd figure out who owns the LLC through open corporates or things like that. Look up a mortgage. Like the best way to figure out who owns a property is who signed on the most recent mortgage.
Right.
Right? Would you sign on a mortgage for my house?
No.
No, I'm not signing for you because if you don't pay that, I'm in trouble.
Right.
So that's usually the best way to figure out who's the decision maker of this asset.
Yep.
So yeah, I ended up buying. So that was like 3 years ago. I bought my first house almost 3 years ago. So June of 22.
Which, let me just fast forward and then we'll work back. So you bought your first property 3 years ago.
Yeah.
How many properties do you own today?
Yeah, like 250 to 300 units, somewhere in that range.
That's insane.
And they're all in the Cleveland area?
Mostly, yeah, a little bit of Columbus as well.
Got
And
it.
now
But
Akron.
Starting in Akron, we'll see how that goes.
So in 3 years, you were able to build up a portfolio of 250 plus properties.
Yep.
Insane.
So taking it back now, right? You got your first one under your belt. How does this really start to snowball into what it is today?
Because and a good question to piggyback off of that. I think a lot of people think like, well, I need a bunch of money to start going to. I mean, you just bought 250 properties in 3 years, right? So explain like how that kind of snowballed from your first deal, the snowball effect to where you're at today.
For sure. I think the first skill that I really got good at was learning how to find good deals. So I got very good on the phone, figuring out, is this person wanting to sell? Are they motivated to sell? Why do they want to sell? And most importantly, does the price that they want make sense for what I'm trying to do?
Yeah, you're trying to figure
And
out, hey, what's your
yeah.
problem? How can I solve it? Right?
Very-
What's the motivation level? And you kind of dug into that, I assume.
Yeah, very quickly I'd be like, all right, I'm going to be able to make a transaction with this person or I won't. And I just paid attention to the people that I thought I could actually do business with versus just talking, which a lot of people like to do in real estate. They just like talking.
It sounds like because you had your license, though, even if that was a property that maybe didn't fit your buying criteria, you were still listing those on the back end, I'm assuming.
Yes. So I got good at finding deals, whether it made sense for me to buy and rent, to buy and flip, or to sell to one of my buyers to either buy and rent or buy and flip, whatever they
Yeah,
wanted.
sure.
So yeah, I actually built a pretty good buyers list of people already owning homes here, right? If you
Yeah.
already own something here and it's not going horribly, you might want to buy another one.
Definitely.
So those are actually pretty good buyers. And then I also leveraged Bigger Pockets, Facebook, LinkedIn,
Yeah.
posting what I was doing, what I was learning, and I
Yeah.
found a lot of buyers that way as well.
Got it.
So-
and I know, Bigger Pockets is something that Nick and I have been just hearing, repeatedly from a lot of other people, and we're not super familiar with it. I know what it is. I know it's a nice network of, like-minded investors. Can you speak to a little bit of how Bigger Pockets benefited you specifically and just networking with more buyers? Like, what does it look like? Is it like a forum and people are just kind of, making different posts of, hey, I'm buying here and this is what's happening? What does it kind of look like?
Yeah, it's different today than what it was like 3 to 4 years ago. It's way more like inflated and there's so
Yeah.
many people in there. But it's basically people in expensive markets looking to buy properties in cheaper markets like Ohio, Indiana, whatever the case may be, somewhere in the Midwest. So I just went there and I talked about what I was learning. Hey, I got deals. I know
Yeah.
the areas. Don't buy in East Cleveland. I know
Yeah.
it's 20 grand. It looks decent, but you're never gonna have somebody live there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks
things
good
like
on a
that.
pro forma, right?
Yeah, it looks-
but then when
the
you
numbers
actually
look
buy it, and you're
amazing.
like, well, fuck, who's gonna live here?
Yeah, nobody. I was just driving over there today. I'm like,
Dude, it's
there's,
insane.
There's one person every 20 houses living there.
It's wild.
Yeah.
It's like a ghost town. It's insane.
Yeah. So I quickly was able to build trust with people because a lot of realtors tend to either A, not know the areas, or B, not care. So they would just sell these people anything. So I would constantly tell buyers, like, no, we're not going to buy that. Let's focus on something in this better area. And they're like, okay, he's actually looking out for my best interests. So I was able to quickly build momentum as a buyer's agent for investors that way.
So Bigger Pockets was a good resource for you to build up a buyer's list, really,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, that's great, man. And I know we keep jumping ahead, but it's just it's so fascinating to me. But going back to like, how did you continue to buy, right? You weren't sitting on millions of dollars at the time where you were just like continuing to buy and buy and buy and buy. So like, what kind of loan product were you using to buy? Was it always hard money? I know you do a lot of DSCR, correct?
I literally all hard money on the initial purchase because everything I buy needs renovated. And then I refinance into DSCR.
Okay. And you use Isaac a lot?
Started to use Isaac
okay.
recently. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've gone through different people. DSCR changes all the time.
Yeah.
It's
As
actually
far
has
as what, like the requirements?
the
or
underwriting requirements, the pricing guides. Also, it has a high default rate. It's like a 6 to 8% rate right now the last couple of years. So investors are starting to wake up like, oh man, we probably shouldn't give somebody with no job and no income
Well,
a loan.
they're still not checking for income though, right?
No, they aren't. But I think eventually this loan product's gonna have to change because
Yeah.
it's becoming very
easy.
risky for who's holding the note.
Yeah, of course.
So
That's incredible, man. So a lot of hard money. You're refining out into DSCR. So let me give you an example of a deal I just bought, or I'm actually closing on it in about a week. It's a 3-bed, 1-bath on the west side of Cleveland. Property's worth, probably $150,000. I'm closing on it in cash for $110,000, just because it's good value, right? And
yeah.
I'm just gonna just kind of figure it out from there. Is that a property you would? So if I'm closing it in cash for the 110, right? You get it if you were to say after the 6-month period, hey, I want to refi this, right? You get it appraised for 150. You pull your 75% out, say, right? You get your 110 back, maybe a little bit more, which is tax free, by the way, right? Any profits on a refi is tax free. Rents are $1,530 a month, $1,530. There's really no value to be added there. The house is already renovated. However, you refi out, get all your money back. Your payments are $1,000 a month. The rent is $1,500. So you're cash flow positive $500. It's essentially infinite cash flow, right? Because you have no skin in the game. Is that something you would refi out?
definitely.
Like, do you have like a minimum? Like if you refi out and you're only $300 cash flow positive, or is it like a minimum? Because for me, it's like I don't do much refining, but it's like, especially with these properties in Cleveland, is like I don't want to take on the risk of refining and being $200-300 a month cash flow positive. One, that's a massive volume play. You want to go do that hundreds of times, which you've figured that out. But like, is there kind of a minimum? Like, is it like, hey, I want to be $500 or more?
I don't pay too much attention to the back end cash flow. It's more so, can I pull my money out?
Yeah.
And
But
my
what if
focus
you're- yeah, go ahead.
is to be all in 70% or less. And since I've been doing this, I've got my construction costs lower because I basically created a construction company.
Yeah, and streamlined it all.
Yeah, everything's in house. So
And we talked about this last time. Sorry to cut you off, but being an agent, like I would imagine you can underwrite a lot of deals a lot easier, right? Because we gave the examples if you sell a house for $200,000, and I mean when we underwrite deals, we assume we're paying 8 to 10% to sell it, right? Between realtor costs and title costs. Representing yourself, which I imagine you do when you sell some of your deals, like I mean, if you're saving 4%, that's a huge number on say 200,000, you're saving about 10 grand by being able to see that, so if we're flipping properties and our ROI benchmark is say 20%, right? A lot of deals are kind of right on that border where we could pencil a lot more deals if we know that we could save 4% on the back end. So I'd imagine that gives you a huge advantage being an agent.
Oh yeah, I love taking the stuff that I'm renovating and selling it to my own clients. There's no commission at all.
Yeah.
Now I have to have a good reputation and actually do good work, because when you have your license, yes, you can save money, but also you're also at risk of more liability. There's higher ethical standards you have to hold yourself to and things like that. Yeah. But if you're a good person, yeah, it's a great thing to.
That deal I just gave you would refi out 100%.
Yeah, I do that deal all day.
Yeah.
Because my main focus is getting a lot of good debt that I can pay down.
I'll sell it to you for 150.
I don't want it for 150. I'll take it for 110. Because a lot of investors stare at cash flow in the beginning. They're so focused on cash flow in the beginning. They don't think about anything like appreciation, depreciation, debt pay down, right?
What I've learned in Cleveland is just a cash flow market. Like there's really no appreciation in Cleveland. And if there is, it's because of interest rate environments, healthy interest rate environments, or that's really it, right? You could be in the nicest markets of Cleveland, call it Tremont, Ohio City. And there might be, very insignificant amount of appreciation, but like, I just don't think in a market like Cleveland, it makes sense to buy anything sub 10% cap rate, right? It's just like Cleveland is strictly just a cash flow market.
I would agree with basically all of that. There's certain pockets that I think will go up.
But significant? Like, are you going to 2-3x? Yeah.
No.
Meaning like bigger markets like Miami, right?
Oh,
yeah. Back in the day, we were settling for 6-7% cap rates, right? Because, that was 10 years ago, and these things are 4 or 5xing in value, right? Mm-hmm. You're just not going to get that in Cleveland. So I hear you. There is some appreciation, but it's like it's not significant.
But the trade-off is it's much harder to predict that appreciation, right? Mm-hmm. You could predict the cash flow pretty easy off the rip, but the appreciation makes it difficult.
Well, in Cleveland, I think you have to force appreciation.
That's what I mean when I say appreciation.
Yeah, you got to force it through rent growth or or renovating houses or raising rents. Like, that's the only way you're going to see appreciation in Cleveland is you got to force it.
A market like Cleveland is so investor owned. It's so investor heavy. It's not necessarily like the neighborhoods are growing. It's like, do the numbers make sense? Right. Because everyone buying these homes generally don't live here, and they live in more expensive markets, right? So I don't actually think it's a market that's going to necessarily go up a lot or necessarily go down a lot. So if you're consistently buying things where you're all in less than what it's worth, I don't see how you can lose.
Yeah, I don't think you can lose.
So that's where my I'm going all in on that. I'm buying as many as I can where I can consistently do that.
So it sounds like your buying criteria is you're not really concerned about the cash flow. You talked about mainly what you're looking at is being all in at that 70 to 75% value where you can essentially pull all your money out of the deal and whatever it cash flows is positive to you and you have nothing in the game and you just take your money back and you go do it again and duplicate it.
So I'll give you an example of that illustration. Essentially, if my down payment is $15K for a deal on like a duplex where I can create, call it conservatively $35,000 of net equity, meaning I'm all in truly 110 on something worth, 145 or 150, right? So I put 15K down. Then at my current pace, I'm refinancing about 4 months later.
Yep.
I get my 15K back. And then I put it into another deal month 4 through 8, right? Then it comes back. And then I put it again month 8, get it out month 12.
Constantly getting recycled.
So I put $15,000 into a machine on the first day of the year. And at the end of the year, I turn it into 35 times 3 plus your money back. So that's 105,000, right?
Right. Roughly.
120,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what cash flow is going to get you that much money in a year? Is there any building under millions of dollars that will make you that much in a year? None.
Right.
So I think of cash flow through forced depreciation. And then the focus is just pay down the debt.
Yeah. And
pay down the debt.
And you're who the people you're renting to? Are you going Section 8? Are you going private pay? What does that look like?
Private pay. And I actually do a little bit under market rent because I want to rent things fast and I want to get the best tenants possible in the area.
Looking back, and we've done how many deals together? 50 plus deals.
Yeah,
together.
dozens.
So at one point, I was buying up a shit ton of properties, right? Distressed properties, throwing some renovation efforts into them, renting them out. And looking back, a mistake that I made was, I was renting, take it Clark Fulton duplex for an example, right? Both units are 2 beds.
What
1
would you say?
baths.
It's a D plus neighborhood
Yeah, I mean,
at best.
C plus, C minus at
yeah.
best. Like,
Yeah, I call it C minus.
yeah. And for a 2-bedroom unit over there, I was renting them for $950 a door. You're asking people who are making $2,000 a month to pay $900 a month, right, in rent. And it's like, yeah, it looks great on a pro forma. It's like, hey, I could stabilize this thing at a 15 cap, and I could probably trade it at a 9 cap. But it's like, sure enough, 3 months into that, when you're trying to sell it, they stop paying rent. So in hindsight, I probably would have, not spent so much CapEx renovations right up front, and just rent it at a lower price point, to keep your cap rate healthy. And then just you'd have more sustainable long-term tenants. I mean, we were going through so many evictions every month, and it's just like, dude, ethically, I was like, I just can't do this business anymore, right? So we traded out a lot of that. But I appreciate what you're saying there is like, you keep rents a little bit, below market, if you would. And I think that's a great play.
But just playing devil's advocate here a little bit, contrary to kind of what you're saying, the Section 8 play, right? The big benefit is the money's coming in, the rent's guaranteed, right? Yeah, maybe you're not getting the best quality tenant, but you can screen your tenant. It's not like, I feel like a lot of people might have the misconception of, oh, if you go to rent your property to Section 8, they're essentially assigning you a tenant. I feel like a lot of people might have that misconception that maybe aren't in real estate, but no, you actually can vet and screen your own tenant for Section 8. So I'm just curious, especially with someone doing as much volume as you, how you're completely avoiding the program. It's, I think that's amazing that you found success, and obviously you've had success in doing it with private pay and other properties, and so you just completely avoid it. You don't want anything to do with it.
The volume is the issue because Section 8 takes longer.
Right.
So,
Which can kill a deal, by the way, right? If you're like, again, sorry to cut you off, but it's like when we would look at a deal, we're like, all right, we got to renovate both units. Then we got to go through the CMHA process. And it's like, it's going to take you 6-7 months to stabilize, right? And that just kills a deal. Like when you're,
especially when you go in and you purchase with hard money and you have those interest-only payments up front, those add up really quick. Those are expensive payments.
So in the beginning, I did some Section 8 because I was only trying to turn, 2 units a month I was trying to rent. Now I'm doing 20 units a month. So 20 units a month times 6 months of holding costs with a hard money loan is not fun.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm just going to get somebody in there cheaper, on to the next. Just get it going.
I was always private pay, and then I took my first Section 8 tenant. She moves in. Forgot what the issue was, but she's blowing my phone up, texting me, hey, I planted a bomb under the house. I'm like, all right, no more Section 8 for me. Like, just this lady was crazy. So I'm like, all right, that's it for my Section 8 experience. But yeah, man, that's awesome. How are you're buying all these deals, right? How are you sourcing them? Are you buying on market? Are you buying off? Are you still cold calling for these deals? Like, how are you able to buy so many deals?
For sure. So about 30% on market, 30% wholesalers, and then about 40% in-house through my own callers / referral network. That's about the breakdown of my buyer or where my deal flow is coming from.
How many callers do you have?
It's a big turnover business. I usually have like 2 full-time people.
And are they
all the time.
commission-based?
Yeah.
Are they VAs or are they based
No,
here?
they're either in the city with me or they're like in a different state.
And
Are they
you-
other realtors as well?
Usually they're not.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you have your guys calling, right? And if it's a deal they bring to the table, it's a good deal, but it doesn't fit your buy box. Are you assigning it? Are you like, because again, we've sold a lot of deals through you in the past, and you were working with buyers. So like, if they bring a deal to the table that you don't like, are you still able to monetize on that deal?
Oh yeah, of course. We bring it to one of my buyers and then we'll split the marketing fee.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about SOPs, man, and you figured this thing out. So it's
So
pretty
far.
impressive. So far.
So
250 properties.
yeah. Are you running any flips? Like, do you do any traditional flips at all?
Yeah, the flips are my cash flow, so then everything doesn't just go to shit.
Yeah.
So I flipped about 35 homes last year, and I'm trying to flip about 75 to 100 this year, trying to do way more.
And what are you looking at for your buy box for flips? Like, what do you kind of look at when you're evaluating a deal?
I flip the ones with the lower return on equity on the refi.
Okay.
So that's basically what the rationale is.
If you're not getting all your money back, you're flipping it, kind of.
It's not even like I will get the money back, but it's, if I have a $100K loan on a property, one property's making me $8,000 a year, and then one property's making me $5,000 a year. I might as well just sell the $5,000 one, keep the $8,000 one, to continue to pay all the debt because I'm in almost $20 million of debt, right? So I need assets that have some cash flow,
Sure.
to service that.
Right.
Incredible
Right.
debt, by the way. And you hear all the time like how debt is bad, right? And it's like, look what you've been able to do with
You gotta
debt,
have good
right?
debt.
Yeah, you got to
There's
leverage
good debt and
healthy
bad debt, right?
Yeah.
How much is that debt paying you though, right?
Right.
Putting that money to good work is what it's all about. So that's absolutely amazing.
Can you speak a little bit more about house hacking? Kind of what is that process? Because I know a lot of people, especially like when they're first getting into the real estate space, like I hear it a lot is like from all, I want to go house hack. I want to do, what is that process like? Because I've never done it.
Yeah, just buying a duplex, living in one unit, and then hopefully the other person's rent pays your entire mortgage or most of it. So it's a great way to get into a property with like an FHA loan.
Yeah. But how does that springboard into more deals, right? Because you're living there. It's just paying your note
It's
down.
just a way of freeing up some cash, essentially. Your living expenses are less, and you can do it every year. So you can do an FHA loan every single year.
And it's, what is it? FHA is like 3% down or something?
Yeah, and
5% down?
if you bake in seller paid credits in the offer, you can bring nothing to close. Or I've had a bunch of clients actually get paid to buy a house, which is wild.
Yeah, if you house hack with an FHA loan, how long do you have to wait until can you keep doing that?
1 year.
So you got to live there for a year, and then you can go do it again. And then just rent the place where you were living, rent that out.
Yeah, so like one of the first guys I cold called, it was two brothers. They're about 60 in Grandview Heights in Columbus. They both did a house hack every year from like 20 to 30, and they have 100 units paid off in an A-class area in Columbus.
Wow.
These guys never have to work again in their life.
Yeah.
Because of the decision they made in their 20s.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Unbelievable. How old are you?
24.
24. That's insane.
That is insane.
How much real estate did you buy in 2022, 2023, and then 2024?
Okay, 2022, $1.5 million.
Like worth? $1.5 million worth of real estate. Yeah.
$1.5 million worth of real estate. Then I wanted to double it the next year. Did a little bit more than that. I did $5 million. That's when I started to figure out my construction a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
That was maybe 40-ish deals, 30 deals maybe. And then last year was 15 million. So, and then this year I'm trying to buy like as close as I can get to like 40 million.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And are you trying to expand just outside of Northeast Ohio? Like, are you looking to buy in other markets?
I mean,
You're going to need to, man. I mean, you're going to
He's gonna have every house in the neighborhood over here.
Cleveland is distressed. Like I drive up and down. I'm like, man, I got a lot of work to do.
Yeah,
there's a lot of work to be done here.
Yeah.
So as far as I'm really curious about your construction process, because to me, in the business model that you're running, that's like one of the biggest things that you can't screw up. And if you do, it'll end your business, right? So you mentioned that you had your construction in-house. How have you set that up, and what does that look like today?
And really quick on the ending your business thing, there's a guy going through something really bad doing what I do in Cleveland. You got to be careful when you scale.
Yeah.
Like you have to have reliable people, and you can't buy too much and then get caught holding the bag.
Yeah.
So I'm really big on like wanting my guys to win as much as I'm winning.
Yeah.
So my bidding process is unconventional to what most people do. When I send my guy, so Henninger, for example, I forget the number, but the duplex you sold to me a month ago, 2 days ago, is now done and leased, by the way. But
That's unbelievable.
Yeah,
'cause
one
that
month.
place needed a ton of work.
What deal
Did
was
you
that?
see that? It was a duplex in Old Brooklyn, was it? It was a duplex in Old Brooklyn, and to the looks of it, it needed everything.
Yeah.
I mean, the place was rocked.
Yeah, it was like
and to
gutted,
hear
right?
that it's lease ready right now is pretty unbelievable.
Yeah, that's
1
wild.
month to the day.
That's unbelievable.
And that is not how we started. It did
Yeah.
not take a month. It took 9 months to get projects done, but now it's better. But basically, when I sent my contractor to the house, I'm like, hey, dude, I can spend $55,000 at this property. Okay, I'm going to open up my cards. This is how much I can spend. And I have a document that's like the minimum requirements of renovation. So if the roof is 20 years or older, replace it. If the furnace is 15 or 20 years older, replace it. Hot water tank 10, remove like outdated electrical boxes. You have to have the same type of flooring. I keep going on and on.
What if
You get the idea.
What if they can't do it for 55? You say, hey,
Then
we
we
can
just I don't do the project. But the idea is, sometimes maybe my guy will make, only $3,000 on the deal.
yeah.
But sometimes he only make like 20,000 on the house.
But you're telling them you have 55 to spend before you buy it.
Yeah.
So that way you know if you can offer on it at that
But
price.
you're also giving them the breakdown of, hey, this is what needs to be done.
Yeah, it's a template for every house that I do. It's the exact same.
SOPs.
So yeah,
Yeah,
look,
you
this
know.
is what I can spend. Here's what needs to be done. Do you want to do it?
Yeah.
Sometimes he makes a ton of money on them. Sometimes he makes a little. But the idea is, sir, I'm going to keep bringing houses. So you should probably do the ones where you
Yeah.
make a little less This way I win. And then when I have something that I can spend a lot on that you're going to make a lot on, you really win.
Yeah.
So it's like just this partnership that evolved from a me and 2 general contractors in the beginning, kind of, to me, 4 general contractors, and then 1 project manager. And then about 40-ish, 30, 40 subs.
Wow.
There's about 50 to 60 people involved in the whole process.
Wow. That's amazing.
Incredible, man.
That's amazing. I
And
mean,
it makes it efficient too.
Yeah.
Like Brett, I think like he walked it, at like 6 o'clock, and then I called you at 10 a.m. the next day. Like, I'm ready. Let's do it.
yeah.
I didn't have to go through a whole scope of work and have to write everything down.
And that's, it's funny because we had Wayne Brooks on yesterday, and he runs a very similar process. He said the same exact thing. He gives the number, right, of, hey, this is how much I have to spend on this rehab. This is what needs to be done. Who wants to do this job? And he goes and chops the offer. Now, I think that's so incredible, especially as, a lot of contractors will come in, and if you just say, hey, quote this job out for me, they're going to go look at all the odds and ends. They're going to want to change everything and probably spend a lot more money than you really need to at the end of the day.
Definitely.
Incredible, man. Something I've always admired about you, Josh, is, like he's incredibly humble, right? And especially being 24 years old, like you're light years ahead of where I was at 24. It's not even close, right? And where I was is like, dude, at 24 years old, like I just would have been a lot different. So like I admire you for that. And my motto's kind of always been is you don't need to be loud to make an impact, right? But I find that to be so impressive. You're ultra successful, especially at a young age. So that's pretty amazing, man.
I appreciate
I've always
that.
picked up on that and noticed that. So good for you, man. It's awesome.
Thank you.
And looking back, so I mean, it's funny because I can't imagine there's much you would say, but looking back to yourself at, 18, 19, 20 years old, what piece of advice would you give yourself?
Drop out of school earlier.
Probably.
Yeah.
Honestly, like don't even try to go to college. I went to 3 different colleges in 3 years.
I went to 2 different colleges in 1 year, and I was like, fuck this. I can't do this. But good question.
Yeah. I mean, really, is there anything that you would have told yourself back then to do differently?
Take more risk. I take a lot of risk, but I take even more. Every year you get older, you get less energy.
Yep.
You take on more responsibility. You have kids, right?
Yeah.
You get to a point where you can't take as much risk. So you might as well.
And
time too. Yeah, your time investment.
Yeah.
So it's like, try to learn and fail as much as you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we were talking about yesterday too. Just fail forward, right? Take those massive imperfect actions and just go figure it out.
And it's so crazy because you fail every day, whether it's a small failure or a big one, is like every single day you make 1 or 2 or whatever bad decisions or whatever it is. And it's like those failures are such big learning lessons, right? And it sounds so like corny, but it's so true. And look, growing this business is like, we learn every day, but there's things we do that like looking back, we're like, man, we should have done this differently. But now we know. And I feel like we're at a point now where it's like, we're making major changes within our company, Quick Direct. And I mean, there's a lot of failures over the last couple of years that we were able to kind of like build upon. And now we know moving forward, hey, this didn't work. This works, right? And so now I feel like we've been kind of on this runway and we're just kind of taking off, if you will. But yeah, failures are important to go through.
They're important, but it goes into taking action as well, because you can fail, right? Everyone's going to fail at something. But at the end of the day, if you don't learn from that failure and take action on what not to do now because you learned, then there's no point, right? A lot of people fail and they get discouraged, where you need to take that failure and make it a lesson, right? And really just improve and go find the next failure, the next higher level failure, and learn from that one and keep stacking them on top of each other, right? I think that's just how to grow as fast as you've grown. It sounds like it's just going all in on it and learning as you go.
I'll tell you, I had 141 deals fall out last year between stuff I was trying to buy and sell as a realtor. That's almost a failure every day of the year.
Right? Yeah.
Right? So it's like every quarter I look at every transaction. What went wrong? What could I have done? Take crazy responsibility. Figure out how much can you actually control. And if you think of that way, you can control a lot more than you think.
100%.
Absolutely.
All right, great. Now I know what happened. What can I do differently? Now let's never make that mistake again. And I think that's another way I was able to scale quickly, is like I just plugged it into the system like immediately and never did that thing again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you could take it if you take this in relation to wholesaling real estate, right? There's so many different things that could screw your deal up, right? But I'll give a basic example of if you're talking with a seller and you go, the deal gets to title and you have them locked up at 70,000 and you have it sold at 90. Come to find out, the seller has a mortgage for 100K and you're at title ready to close. And all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, no one can do this. We can't even do this deal, right? And if you would have just asked that one question up front, hey, do you have any mortgages on the property, right? You would have avoided that whole situation, right? So I think just kind of understanding the situation and learning, right? Because a lot of people could look at that and say, well, dang, I'm just out of luck. There's nothing I could have done, right? Where you just learn from that. Hey, next time now I know. Do you have any mortgages or liens on the property that I should be aware of, right? That's just a question that you have to implement to just control the next scenario and just to eliminate that fallout rate. 100%. Just these little things add up.
And you don't need to be perfect, right? But it's about getting better every day, right? You're never going to be perfect, but it's like kind of, closing that gap, and even if it's, a couple points better, 2% better. It's like that 2% over the long haul is a big deal.
Oh yeah, everything multiplies. Failures and successes both compound.
Yeah. To kind of wrap it up here, a couple last questions. If you have, and I think we just kind of hit on the life one, but like, what's your number one piece of advice just in life in general, and then also in the business world or real estate, business, whatever? And I think you kind of hit on the life one is like, don't be afraid to fail, right? And I guess that can go into the business side too. But do you have like one piece of advice that you would dish out? I'm sure there's a lot.
Don't get emotional in business. And that helps me a lot when I think somebody did something wrong or did me wrong or, screwed up a deal in a way, instead of just flaring at them and getting all pissed off and emotional, it's like, hold your ground.
Stay the course.
Relax. What can you learn from the situation? Try not to burn any bridges. Because those bridges eventually, if you burn enough bridges, they connect. And then all of a sudden, there's a bunch of areas that you can't go towards because it's all blocked off.
It's a good point.
That's a great analogy. So what is your why? Why are you doing all this? What deep down, with your thought process, what are you working towards? Like what keeps you going every day to go keep buying properties every single day?
I just drive around Cleveland sometimes. I'm like, this place needs a lot of help.
It does.
And you can make a significant impact in people's living circumstances.
Absolutely.
Just painting and laying LVP flooring.
Absolutely.
It can change someone's life from seeing holes in the wall, smoke, stuff in the wall, like ceilings falling down to, clean yard, maybe a newer asphalt driveway. Like they're going to feel so much better about their life and they're going to treat your house better and you're going to do better in return. So
absolutely. 100%. You hit the nail on the head. I feel like, especially as a wholesaler, earlier on in my career when I was kind of going around myself to all these different properties, you see some of the craziest living situations. And you're like, to me, that was one of the biggest educators I felt in my life was when I first got into this business and you start to walk into some of these properties and you really see how some other people live. It's a major eye opener to where you're just like, this is unbelievable. I didn't know people actually lived like this. And it's sad, it really is. But at the end of the day, especially in a very distressed market like a Cleveland or like a Detroit, you have these older homes and the population's decreased so much and you have such a massive rate of abandoned houses and houses that are just in complete disrepair. And it's getting to a point where there's almost not enough livable houses for the amount of people living here. And that's kind of where we're at today. And I think that's incredible how you're making such an impact on that and just people's lives in general.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun so far.
No doubt, man. Well said.
Yeah.
Well, good stuff, man. Josh, honestly, man, we appreciate you being on.
Thank you.
It's a great episode.
Stuff.
Great episode.
Very good.
We'll wrap it up with that. Josh, how can the people find you if they want to, find you on social media? How can they connect with you?
For sure. Josh Janice on Instagram. And you can hit me up on Bigger Pockets as well, or just Google me.
Beautiful,
cool, man. Josh Janus, everyone.
Thank you so much, Josh. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. Again, please drop comments. Let us know what you want to hear more of. We appreciate the support. Please continue to follow and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.
All right. Thank you.